Philosophy comes from the ancient Greek words philo, meaning to love, and sophia, meaning wisdom. And it is the love of wisdom. And when I studied philosophy in university and I studied meta-philosophy, there was a very interesting question around the purpose of philosophy. And there was a bit of an existential crisis because philosophy was looking at science, wondering, well, what look at all the knowledge science has accumulated, and what has philosophy accumulated with 2,000 years of effort rather than 200 years. So what is the purpose of philosophy? What exactly are we doing here? For me, it seemed like quite a simple solution because I see that there's a great distinction between knowledge and wisdom. And that's what we're going to look at in today's episode of The Living Philosophy. Just before we jump in, if you're enjoying these videos, it'd be really great if you could hit the like button below, and if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel. All this really helps things to keep growing. So yeah, without further delay, let's jump right in. Science has achieved a startling amount in such a short space of time. Over the last few hundred years, it has collected so much knowledge. There's now more knowledge than anyone in the world could ever know. They say that Gottfried Leibniz, contemporary of Isaac Newton's, who Isaac Newton actually had a big conflict with over who invented calculus first, but Leibniz is said to be the last person on earth who knew everything there was to know. He knew every bit of knowledge that had been accumulated at that point, and obviously that's no longer possible. There are infinite tomes. You can go in and spend your entire life studying sea snails or quasars. There's so much variety within science, and there's so much knowledge to accumulate that it's more than any one human can integrate. And so that's the thing with knowledge, is that it can build up and it can build up and it can build up, and you're always standing on the shoulders of giants. But I think that wisdom is something completely different. Wisdom, which is what philosophy is all about, is more about integrated knowledge. And the thing with wisdom is it's not just a piece of knowledge. You can know what the right thing is to do, but the hero, the wise man, the sage is the person who actually does the right thing, the person who follows through on their values. There's great stories from World War II, a great language teacher, a guy called Michel Thomas, and he put himself at incredible risk in order to help other people escape from the Nazis who were shipping Jews off to concentration camps. And you see in his biography there's so many stories about people putting themselves just in incredible danger and taking a very principled stance, and we'd all like to think that that's us. But how many of us would rise to that occasion? And for me, that's a difference between wisdom and knowledge, is that knowing the right thing to do versus actually doing it. And so wisdom is finite. I suppose if you're going to put some kind of archetypal garb around it, you'd say that wisdom is feminine, because it's the limited, it's the finite, it's the awareness of the earthy, whereas knowledge is masculine, it's expansive, it's constantly pioneering and exploring new territories, and that's where knowledge expands ever outwards while wisdom knows her bounds. And wisdom in this sense is the thing we want to live by, because there's only so much you need to do to be a good person. There's the human condition has not really changed. Now the outward circumstances may have changed in the last hundreds of years, in the last thousands of years, but the challenges remain the exact same. Even when we're faced with the polarization of society through social media and a fragmenting society, the emotions that this evokes are not new. The patterns of human interaction are not new. It's been played out it's the same old drama being played out in a new way, because humanity only has so much of a range, and the common lot of humanity is so predictably the same and repetitive in many ways that to become wise there's not actually that much needed to write. And that's why books like the Tao Te Ching or Epictetus's Enchiridion or Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, they're simple books that have eternal wisdom, because if you can live everything that's within that book, if you can live everything in this small grasp of knowledge, then you have life sussed. You are living a good life, and that's really what's important. Everything after that is just exploration, I guess. It's enjoyment, it's entertainment, and really philosophy boils down to some very, very simple principles that you endeavor to live by. And it's having the different virtues, the courage, the temperance, the patience to live a good life and to enact those virtues. And once you have those, everything else just plays itself out. And so in an academic academic setting, I can see why the academic philosophers were worrying about what the purpose of philosophy. We have an accumulated knowledge. Because in a university setting, it's all about churning out new articles. It's all about this back and forth and this creation, this constant dynamism of creativity, as if you're discovering something new. When that happens in the sciences, we're getting the build up of knowledge, but when it's happening in philosophy, it just seems like everyone's destroying each other's ideas. And while there are new distinctions formed, there's not much in the way of knowledge that we can point to. And in some sense, for me, that's why academic philosophy can be quite sterile, because we're constantly just trying to live wisdom. And I guess for me, that's where I differ from that brand of academic philosophy, and why I knew it wasn't my path. Once I was deep in that, I could see that the way it was leading was not the way I wanted to go. I was tapped into these ancient philosophers who were talking about, philosophia, the love of wisdom, the eudaimonia, the good life. And it's really such a simple thing, and yet it takes a lifetime to master it. So wisdom, I guess you could look at it from the perspective of neuroscience. You could say that it's the different levels of the brain having their proper functions. So the limbic system and the reptilian system providing the meaning, providing the emotions of flourishing, while being guided by the prefrontal cortex in a state of wisdom, in a state of logical and rational, guiding things towards the best principle and not just acting out of the immediate reactive emotions. Knowledge in that sense seems like something completely different. Knowledge, we already have all the knowledge you need to become wise. It's already all out there. It's just, can you live it? Can you bring yourself to live according to those principles? And there are some beautiful examples of people in history who have done it, but there are very few people who really have lived up to that ideal of the sage. And it's because, well, the world is just such a mire of conflicting things, and it evokes these limbic system reactions, and we just can't help but get carried away with those emotions. And there are so many tools in philosophy and spirituality to help bring you towards this path. But the path is really, it's very simple. All the philosophizing we do around it is really a sort of embellishment. It's a sort of entertainment, and we know what the real work is that we have to do, and it's just a matter of doing it, I guess. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to share on today's episode of The Living Philosophy. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a thumbs up down below, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you've any thoughts, feedback, or insights. Otherwise, I shall see you next time, guys. Thank you for watching.